Once again, an armed attack in the Middle East, but this time it's different.
October 7th was the Devil's Holiday.
It's very hard to believe what happened, even though I was there and seeing with my own eyes and seeing them laughing and killing and having fun with it.
Because if you don't open the door, they are going to kill you and they are going to kill me, so please open the door.
So Tucker has now become, whether he sees it or not, a tool of the cultural left and of the jihadis. In his most recent newsletter, he praises Qatar. He says, I don't know why everyone's going after Qatar. He's become an apologist for Qatar. At other times, he's even praised Sharia law. Now, one of the lines in the movie continues to haunt me. Jonathan Kahn says, basically, the devil is the first anti-Semite. And it is the project of the devil, ultimately, to lead the war against the Jews. So when you ask me, like, what is motivating Tucker? In some ways, I think it has to be connected to the dragon, the devil himself.
Joining me now is Dinesh D'Souza. He is a filmmaker, as many of you know. He's put out a lot of films, and many say this latest film, The Dragon's Prophecy, is his best yet. You guys know my broadcast partner, Dr. Andy Woods. He's here every Friday for our Middle East update and a regular guest on other programs here. And of course, we carry his broadcast on the weekend. Well, he called me a few weeks ago and he said, Brandon, this is an amazing film. And I said, well, tell me about it. He started telling me about The Dragon's Prophecy. And he came on my broadcast on 74 terrestrial Christian stations nationwide. And he gave a great review of this. And we urged our audience to check it out. He joins us now, the producer, the director, Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Congratulations on your new film. Many are saying it's probably your best film. Tell us a little bit about it, and then I want to play the trailer, and then I want to also ask you some questions.
It is a film that is about Israel and Hamas and radical Islam, and also biblical archaeology and biblical prophecy. So it's a bit of a departure from me. My earlier films have in one way or another been about the meaning of America. But this film has a much wider range, and it integrates politics with the Bible. In some ways, it is extremely timely. Tucker Carlson's in the film, and Ted Cruz and Ilhan Omar, and I have a one-on-one with Netanyahu. At the same time, we talk about the ancient battles between the Israelites and the Philistines and biblical prophecies about the end of the world. It's all pulled together in a single tapestry.
Well, with that, let's watch the trailer, then come back and talk about Tucker and Nick Fuentes and the rise of anti-Semitism, the besmirching of people, like Tucker Carlson said, the Christian Zionists. I think I dislike them the most. Attack on people that are trying to study the Bible in context. So much to talk about. And the fragment of the America First movement, the MAGA movement. Let's get into all this with Dinesh D'Souza. But first, here's the trailer of The Dragon's Prophecy.
Then another sign appeared in heaven. An enormous red dragon. Revelation 12:3.
Once again, an armed attack in the Middle East, but this time it's different.
October 7th was the Devil's Holiday.
It's very hard to believe what happened, even though I was there and seeing with my own eyes and seeing them laughing and killing and having fun with it.
Because if you don't open the door, they are going to kill you and they are going to kill me, so please open the door.
So who are the Jews? Who are the Palestinians? And whose land is it really? Could the fate of the world, of humanity itself, be somehow tied to this place?
The nation of Israel is a resurrected nation. So what if there was going to be a resurrection of another people, an enemy people of Israel? The Bible speaks about this whole war as a dragon representing the enemy attacking a woman representing Israel.
The civilian deaths on both sides represent victories on the part of the dragon.
Hamas did everything within their ability to maximize the civilian casualty.
We came back to a land that was largely barren and empty, and we brought it back to life, and we're going to keep it.
The devil hates the Jewish people because they represent the existence of God.
Because without that Jewish foundation, there is no Christianity.
If we're approaching the end of time, God will reveal himself more and more dramatically.
Speak back through the stones.
The story that they've been telling is that Israel is a colonial project. The problem with that is the city of David. We are an inconvenient truth.
Are you aware of any significant archaeological finding that contradicts the Bible?
No.
God's word stands firm. The dragon will not prevail.
Your message here is become a dragon slayer.
Based on Jonathan Cahn's #1 international bestseller, The Dragon's Prophecy. Watch it now or buy the DVD at thedragonsprophecyfilm.com.
Excellent. Dinesh, as we know, the Bible tells us in the book of Revelation that the people will worship the dragon and the beast. They will worship Satan and the Antichrist, the beast. And of course, isn't it interesting that all of this is lining up? A few years ago, I did a whole series, multi-hour series on the convergence of end-time prophecy. One or two of these stories are pretty dramatic in and of themselves. But then when you combine all of these things that are happening at the same time, such as the war against the Jews, the nations that are lining up against the Jews, nations that have made military and economic alliance for the first time in world history, and now are the same coalition that will come against the Jews per Ezekiel 38:39. When we look at the development of the technology for the mark of the beast, the rise of Christian persecution and Christians being slaughtered, the rise of Islam, interfaith dialogue, people in the America First MAGA movement even defending Islam, but attacking the Jews, even after the tragedy of October 7th, and they still defend Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, and CARE. And I could keep going on down the list of all of these things that are converging at one time. And isn't it something that here's this little country that has come back together, fulfilling the prophecy of the dry bones, returning to being a nation, returning to their Hebrew language, returning to the shekel, returning to being a nation that harvests up to 6 crops a season in the desert, becoming a mighty fighting force, all that the Bible said would occur. And yet here are you and I simply laying out the Bible. And now we're being attacked by some of the so-called biggest names at one time in the conservative movement. If we're not in these, as you would say, last days or the dragon's prophecy era, wow, what else could be laying the foundation?
This is right on, as you just said. The Bible predicts that in the end times there will be a kind of rising temperature, not only of hostility, hatred, violence toward the Jews, but also toward the group that Jonathan Cahn calls the spiritual Israelites, which is the Christians. And sure enough, we see Christians being persecuted, Christians being beheaded, and a lot of hostility to Christianity, even in the European and American lands of where Christianity was sort of first disseminated and first incubated and spread. So all of this is a confirmation of biblical forecasting, and in a quite stunning way. So what the film does is it really begins with about 10 to 12 minutes of riveting footage, most of it never seen before by the public, of October 7th. So it puts you face to face with evil, because of course this footage is not my footage, it's not even Israel's footage, it's taken by Hamas. So you see October 7th not from the point of view of the victims, but the point of view of the attackers. And then the film pulls back and it discusses the nature of good and evil. It goes into fundamental questions like who are the Jews, who are the Palestinians, Are there ancient biblical parallels for the battles we see today? And then, of course, the movie moves into biblical archaeology, which authenticates and ratifies the scripture, showing that all these biblical figures like Pontius Pilate and the high priest named Caiaphas and the prophets Jeremiah and Isaiah, King David, all these guys who are in the Bible, but kind of only in the Bible for thousands of years, and now they are jumping out of the Bible and into the pages of history via the pathway of archaeology. So the film it kind of moves between what's happening in the world right now, like ripped out of the headlines. It moves to topics that are of the widest and most profound significance.
And yet, here we're told over and over by people, including this week, Tucker Carlson interviewing Nick Fuentes, saying horrific things about the Jewish people. Tucker Carlson talks about his absolute, appears to be, hatred of Christian Zionists, which is not Christianity at all, he says, which is not in the Bible. I don't think Tucker knows the Bible at all. He's welcome, and I've invited him on my broadcast to come on live so he can't be edited. We'll have a Bible quiz, a Bible debate. That won't go well for him. These guys clearly don't know the Bible. Here we have Revelation chapter 21, verse 12, the 12 walls, or the 12 tower gates, I should say, of the New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven. The eternal city now, heaven and earth have passed away. We have the New Jerusalem coming down for the new heaven, the new earth from God. And the 12 tower gates have the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. And then the foundations have the names of the 12 apostles. Here we have two programs used by God. The Jews, who are in unbelief today, many of them, and so we have to be patient with them. But the program of God using the Jews, Israel, the 12 tribes, and the apostles who lay down the foundational doctrine of the church. And it's going to be memorialized for all of eternity. My guess is, Dinesh, people like Tucker Carlson do not know what I just said. They don't know Revelation 21, verse 12 and verse 14. What do you think these guys even know the Bible?
I don't think they either know it or care. Let me tell you what I think they want to do. Their objective is to break the New Testament away from the Old. They want to make the case that Christianity has nothing to do with Israel or the Jews. They dismiss the idea that Jesus is Jewish. In fact, they'll tell you Jesus is not Jewish. He maybe used to be Jewish, but he was the first Christian. Now, this is itself somewhat comical because Jesus, the movement called Christianity was founded later in the book of Acts, and of course only took institutional form centuries later. So Jesus was a Jew. He bathed in the pool of Siloam. He walked the pilgrimage road to the temple. He taught in synagogues in places like Capernaum and Magdala. The only scriptures that Jesus had were, of course, the Hebrew scriptures, which is to say the Old Testament. So all of this is all rather obvious, but I think the guys like Tucker and Nick Fuentes and so on, what they really want to do is they want to drive a wedge politically between the United States and Israel. And they also want to drive a wedge right in the middle of evangelical Christianity. They're trying to peel away evangelical Christians from being supporters of Israel. They want the only people to support Israel to be the Jews, so they can then go and say, well, listen, you people are not America first. You're all Israel first. You have dual loyalty. You are traitors.
Now, I want to play a clip of a much younger Tucker Carlson and listen to what he says, and then tell me, what do you think happened along the way? Did he really change his mind, or was he influenced or paid to start, well, basically going against what this younger Tucker Carlson is actually saying and criticizing? And he was mentioning Patrick Buchanan. Watch a little bit of this, please.
I mean, this is part of the sad thing about Pat Buchanan, as far as I'm concerned. And just to restate, I mean, Pat does raise issues that I think are important. I mean, I think that, the sovereignty of the American military, et cetera, I mean, these are not just crank issues. But unfortunately, Pat Buchanan raises them in a way that I think is discredited. And when attacked, he can always fall back on the line, well, the tiny cabal that controls American politics doesn't like me because I speak truth to power. This is actually, incidentally, almost verbatim what he said the other day, that I offend the plutocracy, that I'm a wanted man by the inside the Beltway people, and in every sense cast himself as a victim who is sort of a Karen Silkwood of politics, someone who's so truthful that he's being hunted down by the conspiracy that runs Washington. I mean, it's all a bit much. Maybe Pat Buchanan just says things that are kind of kooky, and that's why he's being criticized. It's perfectly valid to question America's relationship with Israel. Israel has a lobby. It's perfectly fair, as far as I'm concerned, to beat up on Israel's lobby. But I don't think that's the reason that Buchanan is being labeled an anti-Semite. It's this kind of, as I've said, this relentless bringing up topics related to Judaism. I mean, famously, Pat, always beats up on Goldman Sachs, but never Morgan Stanley. I mean, it's really hard to. There is no point at which Pat Buchanan has held a press conference and said, I really don't like the Jews. I think they're a sinister force in America. But I think, and it took me years to come to this position. I mean, I'm not throwing the term anti-Semite around. But you reach a point when you say, well, gee, here's a guy who has gone out of his way to defend Demjanjuk and other accused Nazi war criminals, who's constantly attacked Israel, who's attacked American Jews for supporting Israel unduly, who's implied that American Jews push America into wars in which non-Jews die. There really is, and again, I'm not hysterical on this subject, but I do believe that there is a pattern with Pat Buchanan of needling the Jews. Is that anti-Semitic? Yeah. I mean, after a while, you conclude it is, in some sense, anti-Semitic. I mean,
what happened to that guy, Dinesh?
Well, he became that other guy. In other words, the Pat Buchanan that he is describing is, in fact, Tucker Carlson today, isn't it? And it's almost like he forecast his own future self. It's really eerie, isn't it? Now, of course, the other question, which I don't know the answer to, I wish I did, is what caused young Tucker, to become old Tucker, the very Tucker that he once ridiculed and denounced. Now, some people think it's the Qatari money. I don't think that makes sense because Tucker comes from a wealthy family. Tucker has a huge following, so he can easily monetize that. He doesn't need Qatar to pay his electric bill. So I think that whether or not he's getting money from Qatar, which I don't know, that cannot be a full and adequate explanation of what is up with him. I think there's got to be something bigger and probably more sinister at work.
Okay, sinister as in, I don't know, did he want to get into the CIA? I think Putin mocked him about that, right? Is this guy a tool? Is he part of the deep state? Is he being utilized to divide the MAGA movement? Because everywhere I turn, I see coalitions being divided. And I have to wonder if this isn't part of the goal of some power brokers, power elite, to divide every coalition under the sun. They're dividing the MAGA movement, the America First movement. They started out some time ago dividing evangelical Christians, where we used to be strong Christian Zionists. Our schools, our radio networks, our Bible colleges, our publishers were historically known for being strong Christian Zionists. That doesn't mean we defend everything the Israeli government does any more than we defend what our federal government does all the time. But we understand as Christians God's program for the Jewish people, distinct and separate from the church, as we refute replacement theology. Yet now, many of those once historically traditional dispensational Christian Zionist publishing houses, radio networks, TV networks, and seminaries, they have embraced everything that is the exact opposite. And so we see this division. So whether it's the division in evangelicalism, MAGA, America First, wherever it is, every time we turn, our own families are now divided, whether it's over COVID, whether it's over Trump, whether it's over Israel, anti-Semitism. It seems as though there's a great effort to make sure the right, people on the right and the conservative social right are so divided that we are no longer an obstacle to their complete demise of America.
Let me frame that a slightly different way. There's quite clearly a red-green alliance between the cultural left on the one hand and the radical Muslims on the other. A guy like Mamdani embodies this. He embodies both sides of that, right? He's cultural left at the same time as he is an Islamist, I guess we could say. Now, these two groups, the left and the radical jihadis, are not the same. They have different goals, and they cannot inhabit each other's worlds very easily. But they're united in a common hatred. Who do they hate? Well, they hate the Jews and Israel on the one hand, and they hate the Christians and the principles of America and the West on the other. So it would seem obvious that America and Israel, the Christians and the Jews, should come closer together on purely strategic grounds, leaving aside the Bible, come together to resist this political coalition of the red and the green. So Tucker knows all this. So what sense does it make from the right to come and try to put a wedge, to disrupt this natural coalition and turn Israel and America into enemies and Christians and Jews into enemies? I mean, who would benefit from that? Answer: the jihadis and the cultural left. So Tucker has now become, whether he sees it or not, a tool of the cultural left and of the jihadis. In his most recent newsletter, he praises Qatar. He says, I don't know why everyone's going after Qatar. He's become an apologist for Qatar. At other times, he's even praised Sharia law. Now, one of the lines in the movie continues to haunt me. Jonathan Kahn says, basically, the devil is the first anti-Semite. And it is the project of the devil, ultimately, to lead the war against the Jews. So when you ask me, like, what is motivating Tucker? In some ways, I think it has to be connected to the dragon, the devil himself. Now, I'm not saying that Tucker is like consciously a tool of the devil, but I don't think that Hamas is consciously a tool of the devil either. One of the points of the film is that just as God uses people, whether it's Abraham, whether it's Moses, the devil also uses people to his own nefarious ends. I was on with Roseanne Barr on her podcast, The Comedian, and she was reminding me that Tucker talked recently, not that long ago, about being attacked by a demon. He was not kidding.
Oh,
and he
I know.
says, the demon scratched me, it injured me. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if you're not lying or kidding, which I don't think you are, what you're really saying is that you had a portal that was open for some sort of a demon to enter into you. And so anyway, Roseanne was like, this guy needs an exorcism, and so we didn't want to take that too far. But I don't put that out of bounds, that there is something spiritually nefarious going on with this guy.
I think you're absolutely right. And I remember seeing that clip when we've played it. I want to ask you about America's October 7th, which I think is unfortunately coming. But first, Turning Point USA. The day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, we were live on the air on 74 Christian terrestrial stations. I was told in my ear, Charlie Kirk has just been shot. I stopped everything, turned to the computer, saw the footage, unfiltered, made me sick to my stomach as it shocked everybody. And of course, we covered it nonstop for hours that day and for the next several weeks. We thought there were many wonderful things that came out of his memorial service, the presentation of the gospel, and so many other wonderful things. But the last few weeks, I become very concerned. And I said to my radio audience that we really need to pray because there's a lot of college students that are at stake here. And if they don't stop platforming certain people very soon, we are going to lose a generation spiritually, biblically. And I said, if this doesn't stop, very soon, Turning Point USA, I will be calling it Turning Point into Apostasy USA. Do you at all share my concern that they need to figure out what their theology and doctrine, eschatology is and get on the right footing, whether it's interviewing Doug Wilson or platforming Tucker Carlson, these Reconstructionists, the Dominionists, the replacement theology people? I watch it, I'm like, their worldview is so schizophrenic. Do they even know what they believe? Charlie's gone. He seemed to be the compass. I know he was interviewing some of these people, maybe to give them a platform, to debate them, to figure them out. But if they don't figure out real quick where they're going, this is going to be a real problem for this next generation that are following them.
Yeah, I think we need to make a key difference between discussion and debate, which I favor. I debated Nick Fuentes, of all people, a month or two ago. And my reason was, look, Nick was going around saying, I'm the alpha male. Everybody's scared of me. Ben Shapiro's scared of me. Charlie Kirk's scared of me. So I'm like, I'm not scared of you. And so it was a very informative debate. And I think a lot of Nick supporters were like, wow, we thought Nick would kind of come in guns blazing, but things haven't worked out kind of the way we hoped. I think the fear here is this. There is clearly an effort to kind of raid Turning Point and almost desecrate it, right? I mean, here's Candace basically saying that Turning Point itself may be implicated in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I mean, she alternates between Trump did it to then saying Turning Point did it. And then when she's tired of that, she says a Mossad agent may have climbed through a pipe and maybe he did it. So you get from Candace and what I call the CIA, the Candace Intelligence Agency, one idiotic theory after another. But Turning Point is definitely on the receiving end. Candace has even implied that Charlie is closer to her than he is probably to his own wife. So all of this, I think, is being put out there, and it cannot be seen in anything other than a nefarious light. Then you have Tucker Carlson, who is actually the headliner of Turning Point's upcoming December conference. And Charlie Kirk, I just released a couple of texts where Charlie Kirk is talking to me, and he goes, this Nick Fuentes guy is complete vermin. He goes, do not platform him. Charlie's even upset that I debated the guy. Even though Charlie conceded, I won the debate. But Charlie's point is it doesn't matter. Don't amplify this guy. He's bad news.
And yet they're going to amplify Tucker now after all he said.
Yeah, and Tucker does this like devotional interview with Fuentes. I mean, it's absolutely sycophantic. He doesn't really ask him any tough questions. You can tell he's trying to mainstream Fuentes. It's almost like the sly anti-Semite is trying to legitimize the open anti-Semite so that the sly anti-Semite or the covert anti-Semite doesn't seem so anti-Semitic after all. All of this really bad stuff is going on in that conversation. And it's almost like Tucker saying to Turning Point, guess what? I'm already in the driver's seat. You've already announced me as your main speaker. So F you. I'm going to do whatever I want with Nick Fuentes. Doesn't matter what Charlie Kirk might think. I dare you to cancel me.
Wow. All right. Closing minutes here, Dinesh. Let's talk about America's own October 7th. When about, you maybe do or don't know, we have our own reporter on the ground in Israel. We have now for a few years, and we get regular updates. A few weeks, a couple months before October 7th, 2023, that horrific day, I was on the air and I was pretty hot under the collar. And I did this twice where I really got hot under the collar because I felt like Benjamin Netanyahu was not being as strong as he should about his own country and the defense of his own country. And I was really urging him, stop worrying about what Joe Biden thinks. Stop kissing the ring of Joe Biden. Do what you need to do to protect your people. I'm concerned you guys are not protecting your people to the level you should. Now, I'm just saying that as a guy who's only got open source information, right? And watching and studying, and my reporter on the ground. Well, then October 7th happens. And then it wasn't long before I was saying, now I'm concerned about Judea and Samaria, i.e. the West Bank, as it's derogatorily called. And now we have President Trump saying, we're not going to let you annex the West Bank. I'm like, wait a minute, how about Israel first, America first, Israel first? They should be in charge of their own land. We got to be careful and make sure we're not pressuring them, dividing the land, bringing God's judgment, etc. And now I'm concerned and have been since October 7th, 2023, because Hamas said, we're going to do this again and again, and we're bringing it to America. I'm very concerned about an October 7th style event in our country, them using first responder uniforms, police uniforms, these SIM card servers, SIM cards, sending out millions of diverse, texts that distract or false threats, swatting, and then have where they SWAT and claim a school or a hospital. You have the first responders run to one side of town, boom, they attack the other side of town. Then the first responders run over there, the second county over, they run to back them up, and then there's an attack in the second county. The third county runs to help the second county, and there's an attack in the third county. I mean, we could be seeing major attacks, and yet I don't think Americans and many of our law enforcement even are thinking outside the box. And I think it's because in America, we don't think in many ways as evil people, but we have to understand evil to prepare for evil. What are your thoughts on our own October 7th in America?
Well, first of all, I couldn't agree more with what you just said. I will say that the difference between us and the Israelis is that the Israelis are kind of like people who live in a really bad neighborhood, which is to say, people who live in a bad neighborhood are always looking over their shoulder. They're situationally aware. They know they cannot leave their car unlocked. They also know they need to set their alarm at night. And even if they do that, they know they have to sleep with one eye open. And even then, the Israelis got caught off guard on October 7th. So now you take America. We are much more slovenly. We don't live in a bad neighborhood in general, so we've become very complacent. It's very easy to see all our preparations, it seems like after 9/11, were merely focused on trying to prevent an identical attack. Oh, make sure you take your shoes off, or make sure you go through the TSA, as if to say the terrorists are so dumb that they would essentially try the exact same playbook. You've just described a bunch of other playbooks that they could use, and I'm sure they will use when the time is right for them. So yes, I am very concerned that, and especially with our porous border, who knows the kind of cells that have infiltrated the United States. You can be sure the Biden people were paying no attention to any of this. And so the conditions would seem to be ripe, again, when the time is appropriate for something like 9/11 or worse.
Final question, Dinesh. You have the people on the left, the red-green axis, the Islamists, the Marxists, as you've already referenced. We have what's going on now on the right, as we've discussed. And in the middle, we have a pincher, the pincher strategy. And in the middle stand people like you, me, and many others that are singing from the same songbook or reading the same Bible and teaching it as honestly and accurately as we can, using scripture to interpret scripture, studying the New Testament, running over to the Old Testament to understand what's being described, running back to the New Testament. You know, we're really being approved workmen, you know, who need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of God with the old and the new together. And we're getting pinched. And I want you to speak to our audience tonight who maybe at times find themselves discouraged because there are attacks on the left, there are attacks in the middle or on the right. And here we are in the middle trying to be faithful, but we're starting to find ourselves becoming a smaller and smaller group and opened up and set up for persecution. What is your closing encouragement tonight?
Well, I'll do a warning and then a point of encouragement. The warning is this: the Democratic Party, like the Republican Party, used to be very pro-Israel. This was the case when I came to America as a teenager in 1978. Throughout the 80s, the 90s, both parties were pro-Israel. Now the Democratic Party has by and large surrendered to the Islamists and to the jihadis, and it has gone the other way. Wouldn't it be tragic if the Republican Party follows suit, so that both parties are now united once again, but this time not in being pro-Israel, but in being anti-Jewish and anti-Israel? I certainly pray that that does not happen. I hope it doesn't happen. Now, I don't think it's going to happen. Here's why. I think we all inhabit a world, particularly those of us these days in media and social media, we are seeing a sort of a frenetic segment that is extremely loudmouthed on these issues, thinks that they control. I keep hearing, you know, Trump is losing the base, he better get with the message and so on. No, the people who are on X, the people who are on TikTok, they're not the base. The base of the Republican Party is the 45% of this country that votes for any Republican candidate that has the letter R after their name. Now, Trump does have to get from that 45% to 51%, but that extra 6%, which he can get from here or there, that's not the base. That's the people who you need to get you to the finish line. So I am concerned about these rising tides of anti-Semitism. I am concerned about the influence of people like Tucker. I do think that they are doing a sneak attack on MAGA and on the Republican Party because they don't take responsibility for their own views. Candace camouflages them as kind of, she's basically like the Pink Panther. She's doing like journalistic investigation and supposedly deputizing all her viewers to be FBI agents with her to solve the Charlie Kirk case. And with Tucker, he pretends to be, I'm just asking questions, although all the questions produce exactly the answers that he's looking for. So this is a very, I would say, sly and underhanded effort to move the Republican Party and MAGA into a more anti-Jewish and anti-Israel direction. I think the good news is it's not going to happen. Trump's not going to let it happen. Trump is bound to be concerned about what they're doing to fracture MAGA and undermine him. And I think if J.D. Vance goes this way, it's going to be the end of J.D. Vance.
Wow. Well, I want to encourage everyone to go and watch the film. Here it is, thedragonprophecyfilm.com, The Dragon's Prophecy, put an S in there, guys, thedragonsprophecyfilm.com, thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. Dinesh, great having you on with us. Thank you for doing this. Great production work. And I know our audience will enjoy it if they haven't already seen it.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dinesh. We'll be right back, folks, right after this break. Do you know about glutathione? You can't live without it. It's a naturally occurring ingredient in your body. But guess what? It starts to decrease around the age of 20. You need glutathione. There are over 165,000 studies on glutathione at PubMed. It detoxes your cells. And we know there are toxins everywhere. In fact, studies have shown glutathione may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. Check it out at swishforlife.com. You just put a small 2 caps in your mouth, swish it for about 3 minutes. Then you can swallow it or spit it out. Studies show that this is in your bloodstream within 90 seconds. It's better than an IV. That'll cost you about $250, and it's broken down. But when you swish with it, it is in your body in 90 seconds in its totality. Glutathione, you need it to live. Swishforlife.com. Swishforlife.com.